Okay, we can start now. Hello and welcome to an introduction to Unit 9, look at healthcare statistics specific to hospital services, not general healthcare statistics that you may be learning about. So this is very specific to health information management students. First of all, this section is a very particular kind of section in that there's not a lot of complex mathematics in it. It's really all about substitution, substituting, counting the right thing, putting it in the right formula that you need to solve the particular problem. And that's what you're going to be doing here. So the tricky part is just learning the language of hospital statistics, which this video is an introduction to. So we're going to start off with a couple of, with a bunch of these terms that are a little bit confounding. The key difference between an inpatient and outpatient, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you to pause and think about it before you hear my answer. So pause now. Okay. Inpatient and outpatient only is designated. So an inpatient is designated by admission to hospital. So you're getting services, but you need to get admitted. That means flip of a bureaucratic switch. Okay. Outpatients there's a whole bunch of weird categories and a whole bunch of different categories. I shouldn't say weird categories for outpatients, but they are not somebody that is, the only thing we're concerned about is either you're admitted to hospital or you're not admitted to hospital. So if you've been admitted, you are an inpatient. If you're not admitted and you're getting services, you are an outpatient. What's the difference in a child that was born 1 hour ago and a newborn that was born 1 hour ago? Okay, so in our, again, pause, think about it. A child that was born 1 hour ago and a newborn that was born 1 hour ago is essentially the same thing for us in our everyday lives. The key thing about a newborn that differentiates the child that was born 1 hour ago is that newborn was born to a mother who was or is an inpatient. I guess this could be is or was. I'll change that. Because sometimes a mother may be sent home and the newborn keep keeping track of the newborn. Okay, so that's important distinction, and you'll see that it'll come up again and again, but that's a really important distinction to make. Census and inpatient service days. Pause. Okay, so census basically is bums in beds. So at a particular time of day, these days it's done very differently than it was when these statistics were set up. It used to be the nurse would come around and count how many bums were in beds. And inpatient service days is patients who got, inpatients who got service. And this is bums in beds at a particular time, usually midnight. Time of day, usually midnight. Okay, and it sounds like they might be the same thing, but there's this particular area where they differentiate in a very small, minute point, and those are people who, if they got admitted and discharged same day, are not counted in census, but PSD are counted in IPSD. Okay, so that's another rule you gotta keep in mind. What's the difference between a patient who is discharged and one who died? Okay, so you can be discharged live or dead. Discharged, dead. So put it mathematically, discharged dead is a subset of discharged. Okay, and sometimes you'll get a designation discharged live, then the dead are not included. So you just have to keep that in mind. What's the difference between a bed and a bassinet? Pause. A bed. Who gets to sleep in a bed? This is sort of like Goldilocks. For those of you that know those children's tales, I guess they're English children's tales. Bassinet for newborns. Everyone else called adults and children. Sorry, I shouldn't use a, well, you'll get used to that. You can read about it, okay? So a bed goes to anybody that is not a newborn, okay? And that's really important because if a baby is born on the way to hospital, that baby is not a newborn and therefore they get a bed, not a bassinet, even though they may technically be in a thing that looks like a bassinet. What's the difference between number of available beds and bed count? Okay, number of available beds and bed count. These are the same thing. The weird part about this is that a hospital could have a series of beds that are sitting there, not being used. They're not available, even though they're there. They're available, but they're not available, meaning they're not staffed. And in the same way, the bed count is a count of beds that are available. What's the difference between a delivery and a product of conception? Here we're both talking about what most of us would just say baby. A delivery is a baby that's born. But the technical term for delivery could mean also include either natural birth or C-section, or if a baby doesn't survive, then it's also a possibility that it would be some other, it could technically be considered an abortion. And a product of conception then is the sperm and the egg uniting and creating what most of us would call a baby. And this is a technical term for baby. Okay, so delivery could mean the process, when most of us think of the delivery also as the product. So just be careful when you are thinking about that term. Now, here's a little bit of number play. So the occupancy rate of a hospital is 94.2%. What is the vacancy rate? I'm just going to have you calculate it quickly. And if you got 5.8%, correct. Okay, so this is just another way of thinking about the occupancy and the vacancy rate. So you hear about vacancies in hotel rooms and so on and so forth. Here we're talking about occupancy rate, or you will be. And if the ratio of awake to asleep students in the class is 4 to 6, what percent of the class is asleep? So that's another thing that you need to kind of think about and be comfortable with, these ratios. I'll give you a chance. Well, pause it here and calculate it, and then you can restart the video. So it's 4 awake to 6 asleep, which means 10 in total, i.e. asleep, 6 out of 10 are asleep, 60% of students, and I know you're not, are asleep. And here we're flipping it around a little bit differently. If the rate of passing in a course is 82%, what is the ratio of pass to fail? So we're flipping from rate to ratio a little more technically. Again, please pause. So 82 out of 100 pass, i.e. 18 out of 100 fail. Ratio of pass to fail is 82 to 18. And you can reduce that to 41 to 9 if you want. And then you can get into decimals if you like. And here, what's the difference between the occupancy rate of a hospital? So this is total inpatient service days in a period divided by total bed bassinet count days in a period. And here and the second one, we have gross death rate, number of deaths of inpatients divided by number of discharges. So think about this and think about what's different, like technically speaking, what's different. Not that the fact that they're dealing with different things, but what are they doing differently as rates? So pause now. Okay. So in the gross death rate, the numerator and denominator are in the same units. So we have number of deaths of inpatients and discharges. So who can get discharged is also an inpatient, right? So this is number of inpatients died, who died, divided by number of inpatients who were discharged. So this is a subset of all the discharges. Here, we have inpatient service days. So it's days. This is also days, but this is bed count days. So this is different. So the units are different in one from the other. And so I want you to pay attention to that. I know you don't know what these are right now, but just pay attention that they're dealing with different things. And now this is the toughest one, and I'm not going to answer it for you right now, but this is something you're going to have to think about. What's the difference between a hospital autopsy, a coroner autopsy, a regular autopsy? And finally, you have 2 appendices in the booklet. So I'd like you to, I'm going to lean over here now. You have Appendix 1 and Appendix 2. And the one thing I just want to make sure that they're called Appendix 1 and 2 in the Unit 9 booklet. And what I'm going to mention to you is that though this is from Appendix 2, this is an actual hospital chart keeping track of these hospital statistics. We're going to use it as practice, but it will not be tested, formally tested. This has been a 15-minute introduction, so not too heavy. Make sure to think. You have to think slowly, but in a different way in this unit. And see you Wednesday.